I love the WWE, and every year I find myself with that dreaded post-Mania hangover. So I'll be super excited for Mania, I'll watch it and have the time of my life, the hype will continue until the Raw after Mania, but after that, it gets rough to say the least. I don't know how to explain it. It really just is a Mania hangover. I just had too much WWE in my system, too much hype. I wake up the next day and I'm just hungover like no tomorrow. I don't want to see it again. I don't care. I don't want to follow it. Just get away from me. Like, I don't care anymore. And of course, eventually I do get back into the product, but it's just something that happens every year. But Mania 28 is one of my personal favorite WrestleManias ever. Listen, you all know I'm a huge Rock and Cena mark, so of course I was invested in that match like it was some Apple stock. I just had so much fun watching that event. The issue was though, how do you follow up a show like that? How do you follow up a Mania so big? I mean, it was the WrestleMania that holds the record for most pay-per-view buys for any wrestling event. And the show's over, and The Rock is gone, Triple H and Undertaker aren't wrestling anytime soon, Shawn Michaels is still retired, no Saudi money has come in yet to sway him otherwise, and you just did the record for most buys in your company's history. You can't go back to having a regular pay-per-view after this, right? And luckily they didn't. Extreme Rules 2012 is one of the most underrated pay-per-views of all time. Minus the ending, which of course we will talk about. God damn it, Super Cena, man. Everyone just remembers the main event, but nah, there's so much more here. It was just a fun time. Your boy at Wrestling Gifts didn't have the post-Mania hangover this year. I was actually excited for this. So let's go back to 2012 and see how the WWE followed up one of their biggest shows of all time with another banger. Daniel Bryan vs Sheamus. It's 2012 and man, it's crazy to think that this was 7 years ago. Before heel Bryan, before his retirement, before he won the title at Wrestlemania. Hell, this was even before Team Hell No. This was when Daniel Bryan was just Daniel Bryan, the man who got clapped in 18 seconds at WrestleMania. However though, even though it wasn't the intention, even though the whole point of getting clapped in 18 seconds was to slow down Daniel Bryan, if anything it just made him even bigger. The night after WrestleMania was when the Yes Chants were born. The raucous Raw After Mania crowd just went crazy throughout the night with Yes Chants all night, in random promos and matches just chanting yes, yes, yes and Bryan's name all night. Even Cena during his promo addressed it. The fans just loved Daniel Bryan and it was just something special. Even after the show was over, after the dark match, Bryan cut a promo and he had the fans in the palm of his hands. They just loved him. The Yes movement was created, and even though it took more than a year for it to reach its peak, it was just an awesome ride and it all started before this match. The best part was though, technically Bryan was a heel during this whole run, but people just loved him. So going into the match, the story was simple. Bryan lost in 18 seconds, he blamed AJ, he broke up with her, and the match was scheduled as a 2 out of 3 falls match, back when we didn't get them 3 times a week. So now, no girl to distract him, no fluke ass kick in 18 seconds will stop him now. It was time for Bryan to get back what was his. It was Bryan's time to shine. Oh, and on the other side, he was versing Sheamus. Yeah, Sheamus was in the match too. But that's Sheamus, man. Nothing really interesting ever goes on with him. So it was all about Bryan. So the show took place in Chicago and the crowd was just rowdy as usual. So Daniel Bryan came out to an insane pop and there were yes signs everywhere. Sure, there were boos because he was the heel, but the fans still just loved him. Regardless if it was boos or cheers, he was just over. Sheamus came out and they were booing him like he was Cena in 2011 or something. But the fans were just into it right from the start. So Sheamus quickly went for the bro kick, but our boy Daniel Bryan was actually prepared this time and moved out of the way. The first fall lasted 15 minutes or so and they just flat out had a wrestling match. It was back and forth, they did some limb work, Bryan pulled out all sorts of crazy submissions. They did eventually pick up the pace and just went at it. They had a fire, high quality wrestling match, the match they should have had at WrestleMania 28. Daniel was just on point, man. Sheamus was obviously putting in work, but this just showed how good Daniel Bryan is, how he's on another level. The first fall ends when Daniel Bryan gets disqualified. So Bryan had injured Sheamus' shoulder pretty hard, and you could tell that Sheamus was in pain. So when Sheamus was on his knees, he kept doing the yes kicks over and over again until Sheamus fell over onto the ropes. He kept going and going, and the ref started counting, and he counted to 5, but Bryan didn't stop. He just kept kicking him, and it was vicious, and the fans were into it. The commentators were like, what is he doing? And the referee eventually disqualified him. But it was all a part of the plan, because as soon as the referee pulled out Daniel Bryan, he was smiling, he was laughing. This is what he wanted to do. So even though Sheamus won the first battle technically, he didn't win the war. So Sheamus finally got up, and Bryan quickly put him in a yes lock until Sheamus passed out. It was 1-1, and it was time for the third fall. The ringside doctors came out to check on Sheamus, and the fans were just going crazy. So Daniel Bryan was playing to the crowd, and they were just going insane with some yes chants and no chants. It was deafening. And mind you, this was 18 minutes into the match, and the fans were just as alive now as they were when the match started. So Sheamus eventually got up. He was obviously still hurt, and Bryan came running, and boom, the bro kick. Bryan got clapped. Instead of 18 seconds though, at least he lasted 18 minutes, right? So 1, 2, but no, Daniel Bryan actually kicked out, and the fans went crazy. This was a big moment. It showed that Bryan was a real star. He was a real big time player. He kicked out of the man's finisher. He also made Sheamus pass out. It really elevated him. So both men got up, and for 4 or 5 minutes they just destroyed each other. They did all their signature moves. They did their comebacks. It was fun. It was a good wrestling match. And eventually though, Sheamus did hit him with his finisher and he won the match. But what a match. They left it all out there. This was 100% a WrestleMania quality match. After 2 years of being shafted at WrestleMania, they finally got time to shine. The thing about this match that I love is though that both men got over. Both men came out looking good, which doesn't happen a lot of times. Did they mess up Sheamus after this? Yeah, because that 3-month feud with Alberto Del Rio was really boring. But on this night they didn't. Sheamus put in work and he came out looking like a big time player, and so did Bryan. And for Bryan, we all know how his story ended up going, but it was just awesome seeing this. This was the start of the yes movement, and the fans just going crazy for him even though he was a heel. CM Punk versus Chris Jericho in a Chicago street fight. So CM Punk versus Jericho was an interesting feud. Some really memorable moments, including the iconic CM drunk moments. Remember when Jericho poured a 6-pack of beer on a half-naked Punk on Raw? Yeah, I don't know, this feud was fun at times, but sometimes it just got weird and I was like, what are they trying to do? But the thing is though, regardless of the feud, at the end of the day, these two were ring generals and they could go out there and put on a classic with their hands tied behind their back. But then their WrestleMania 28 match, it was good, but a lot of people were just expecting great. I know I was. I thought they could really steal the show, and instead it was just okay. It was good, but for some reason it just didn't click. So here we were a few weeks later, and it was time for redemption. Jericho versus CM Punk, only this time in a street fight in Chicago, CM Punk's hometown, so you knew they were gonna be rowdy for him. And this match delivered in every way the WrestleMania match didn't. For a PG feud, Jericho went pretty far, so it made sense to have a street fight instead of a good old-fashioned wrestling match. So these two come out, and ladies and gentlemen, they just went berserk. Punk just took out all that anger that he had bottled up and just went crazy. Punk was really firing away at Jericho with a Singapore cane, and I was flinching a bit because he was hitting him hard, but it made sense. If someone disrespects your family to the level that Jericho did, would you put him in a headlock? Or would you beat him up with a Singapore cane? I love how they both came out dressed up in casual wear, because you know, you have to if it's a street fight. It just makes it fun. And Jericho was obviously putting in work. It's Jericho after all. So Jericho was purposely beating up Punk in front of where his family was sitting, and at one point he said, hey Punk, how's your father? So Jericho was pulling out a couple of cans of beer and he was pouring it on CM Punk. What a legend. It was just fun. It was like one of those brawls where you just watch and like, yeah, these guys probably do hate each other. At one point Jericho had Punk in the walls of Jericho, middle of the ring, nowhere for Punk to go, and this man just pulls out a fire extinguisher and sprays Jericho to break the hold. I just love random spots like that. Like, yeah man, that's one way to break out of the walls of Jericho. So Chris Jericho once claimed that Punk's sister had a substance abuse problem, and Punk's sister was front row and she slapped Jericho, and it was just fire. We got a super Macho Man elbow through the announce table by Punk, and it legit looked so awesome. It looked like he was flying and the crowd was going crazy. It was just a great visual. They just destroyed each other for 25 minutes, a good old throwback to some classic brawls from the 1990s. So Punk won with a GTS and it was fun, it was awesome. This is what their Mania match should have been, and this match made up for it. They simply put on a show called Extreme Rules. The street fight was fire and it was extreme. What more could you ask for? On any other night, on any other pay-per-view, if you got two matches like this to close the show, every single WWE fan would be happy. Oh wait, never mind, I forgot that 90% of the community would complain no matter what, so I take that back. But you get the point, two bangers, you got the extreme match with the crazy spots, and you got the wrestling match. It was fire. But remember how I said this was following up Mania 28, the most bought WWE pay-per-view of all time? Well, you have to follow it up with something big. And as good as these matches were, they weren't big. So what's big? Well, how about the return of the one and only Brock Lesnar? Brock Lesnar, the man who left the company in 2004 and went on to become an even bigger star outside of it. The former UFC heavyweight champion, the most well-known combat sports athlete at that point, one of the biggest stars that the UFC had, the man who helped the UFC immensely gain fans in the late 2000s. Well, he was back, and ladies and gentlemen, when he came back, it was absolutely nuts. John Cena was standing in the ring just talking and none of it mattered. He had lost the match to The Rock. After a year-long build, fans were chanting, "You're a loser." And what the hell was he supposed to say? I mean, he did just lose. Times were rough, and then you hear this. Brock Lesnar comes out and the crowd is going insane. He is circling the ring like a shark about to eat his prey. Cena is smiling. Poor guy doesn't know what's about to happen. Lesnar goes in, shakes his hand, and bang, the F5. He kicks away Cena's hat, rest in peace to the hat, and just like that, shout out Mike Goldberg, Lesnar instantly became the hottest person in professional wrestling with one appearance after 8 years. And the build to this match at Extreme Rules was just amazing. You were actually looking forward to Raw to see what the hell Cena and Lesnar were going to do. The whole storyline was simple. John Laurinaitis, who was the GM of Raw, just wanted to bring legitimacy to the WWE. So, welcome Brock Lesnar. So we F5 Cena, and the next week on Raw, Lesnar's back. So Lesnar's in the ring, he's thanking Laurinaitis, he's about to cut a promo, but John Cena's music hits, and John Cena comes out, and the crowd was just going insane for this, because they knew that they're about to see some shit go down. John Cena goes into the ring, he's staring at him, Lesnar smiling, Cena smiling, John Cena walks up to him and just slaps him in the face. Lesnar takes him down, and the brawl begins. The entire roster had to come out to rip them apart. Both men in separate corners. Brock Lesnar runs across the ring to clap him again. They show Cena's face, he has blood all around his mouth and he's smiling. What a visual. And that was it. That was the best thing that could have happened for this whole feud. Just like that. One little brawl and the fans were hooked. We were amped. We wanted to see this match. We wanted to see a war. We wanted to see Superman versus Brock Lesnar. We wanted to see Lesnar again. We wanted to see Cena die. Yes, I'm a Cena mark, but even I was ready to see Lesnar murder him. In the following weeks, we got some Lesnar sit-down interviews, and those were always lit, and it came off so real and authentic. I mean, of course, this is a former UFC champion, and he says, "I'm not a superstar, I'm an ass kicker." I mean, yeah man, you definitely are an ass kicker. It was an incredible hot build which felt real and unpredictable. It was something we hadn't seen in a long time in the WWE. It was just exciting. It was gonna be a war, and we got it. Brock comes out, no heyman by his side, he has the UFC sponsors on his shorts, he's obviously looking like a badass. Cena comes down with a chain and a padlock around his neck, little wrestling gifts, gets flashbacks to Thugonomic Cena and just creams his pants. The crowd was going insane, man. I remember watching this live, it legit felt like the same feeling you had before a big UFC fight. It was just different. This didn't have that normal WWE main event feel, this was just special. The bell rings and Cena runs straight for Brock and gets taken down immediately, and Lesnar starts the ground and pound with huge nasty elbows to the skull of Cena. Right from the beginning, you knew that this wasn't going to be like every other main event. You knew this was going to be something crazy. And see, we're kind of used to Brock Lesnar's style now, even though he mostly just does suplexes. We're still kind of used to the MMA pro wrestling hybrid style that he has. But here, no, this was different. Because when Brock wrestled from 02 to 04 in the company, he was not wrestling like this. It was different. This was the debut of Brock Lesnar's hybrid MMA wrestling style. It legit looked like he was killing Cena, and he probably was. It was epic. It was unlike anything we had seen at that time, especially in that era. Because this was in the PG era. Everything we had been accustomed to seeing in the WWE in the PG era was thrown out the window. Swearing, blood. Lesnar was wiping blood on his chest and licking it. Pure violence and aggression. That's what made this match special. Brock looked like an absolute killer. After more strikes to the head, Cena's legit busted open. No blading here. This is as real as it gets. Shout out to the UFC. The doctors came out to check on Cena, and Lesnar is just there smirking, living his best life. Once again, this was just so different from anything we had seen. At one point, the referee Little Nate was knocked out outside. Lesnar goes out to check up on him, and he legit picks him up with one hand and tosses him in the ring. What the hell? It was so casual. At one point, Lesnar just tweaked. He wowed it out to another level. There were steel steps in the middle of the ring. Cena was on the apron slowly getting up. Brock then runs off the ropes off the top of the steel steps and leaps like an animal to attack Cena. He hits him kind of, but goes flying over the ropes and nearly blows his fucking knee out. But somehow, someway, this monster gets up like he doesn't care. He's smiling and living his best life. He is legit laughing. It was insane. This is a psychopath. But ladies and gentlemen, when you see the title of this video, you see the word confusing. And nothing so far in this show has been confusing, right? Well, this is where it kind of starts, so let's get into it. So Lesnar's about to do the leap again. Instead, he gets hit with the chain, alright? And Cena hits him with the AA onto the steel steps. And you're like, okay, whatever. Lesnar's gonna kick out. There's no way that will make Lesnar lose his first match back, right? No way. Cena won. What the f? Trust me when I tell you that I am one of the biggest Cena marks you'll ever meet in your life. But why, man? Why did he win this? We just had one of the most unique matches in the history of the company. It was the first Lesnar match back with his new style. Obviously, he would still have good matches after this, but they weren't as shocking as this. This was the first match back, and he showed something we had never seen before. He needed to win this. But no, Cena just had to win. What the f? Listen, the match was obviously amazing, the fight, whatever you want to call it, but the ending just kind of ruins it for a lot of people. Like, otherwise it's still an amazing fight, but the ending is just like, just why? Oh wait, it gets worse. But yeah, somehow it gets even more weird and confusing. So Cena won, and this guy gets up like he just hadn't been in some next insane war, like he hadn't just almost been killed, and he cuts a cheesy ass promo just no selling everything that just happened. Oh my god. John, I love you, but nah, this had to be the concussion talking or something. Oh man, how we might have to go away for a while, how he loves everyone, please get home safe. He started talking about how this might be his last ride, no Undertaker. So everyone thought he was taking time off, which first of all, if you were, why do you need to win? The comeback feud versus Lesnar would have been money anyway. SummerSlam 2012 would have been fire. But he didn't even take time off. He legit no-sold 20 minutes of murder. It was bad. And it was confusing. Now there are many reasons to why Lesnar may have lost. But legit, none of them make any sense. There was no reason for him to lose. None. I don't care if Vince has that mentality where you're like, oh, you got over without the WWE? Well, let me make you humble. Let me show you who's the real boss, or whatever his mentality is. No, Lesnar should have won this match. According to Meltzer, after the match, Lesnar was backstage making a scene, just raging about everything that just happened. So remember the bump where he almost blew his knee? So after the match, he was complaining how Cena pulled down the rope, which caused him to fly over the top rope and nearly blow out his knee. Oh, and also that Cena promo, well, that wasn't supposed to happen. He wasn't supposed to cut a promo in the first place. When Lesnar was given the finish, he was told that he was still going to be protected even though he was losing because he was destroying Cena, he legit murdered him, and that Cena would still get the win, but he would collapse and have to be helped out of the ring or left for dead. You know, maybe a stretcher job or something, or maybe he would just be dead on the floor and the show closes with him just on the floor. But instead, Cena got up, no-sold everything, and did a weird promo, And based on what Meltzer was told, he wasn't authorized to do so. So like, I don't know, it was just confusing. I'm just like, why? If you're going to make Cena win, why not do something where he does the AA and I don't know, maybe he just falls over because he's tired and has no strength left, and he just happens to land on Lesnar by accident, gets the pin, but he still doesn't get up. Even though he wins the match, he's still on the floor, just dead, just exhausted. Lesnar lives to fight another day, so even though he lost, he still destroyed Cena, and so Cena's just laying there. But no, man got up like nothing happened. What the See, this show was awesome. The 3 big matches delivered without a doubt. 3 matches that you should go out of your way to rewatch or watch for the first time. It was awesome, but yes, that ending is just confusing is one way to describe it. This show will always have a special place in my heart because of how excited I was for it at the time. It was one of those years where I didn't have a WrestleMania hangover. And I usually have one every year, to be honest. But man, did the product get boring after this show. Holy, Cena went on to feud with the Big Show of all people. He really should have just took that break. Lesnar should have won. Still one of the dumbest decisions I've seen in my life. But at the end of the day, it was still a fire show.